welcome to another episode of the Rebecca Saunders Show. I am super excited to bring on today's guest, Jaimie Abbott. Jaimie and I met in the glorious space of Hawaii last year at a wonderful mastermind retreat that both of us were part of. And she is the queen of all things public speaking and public relations related. Jaimie, tell me, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Beck, for having me. It's great to be here.
It's super fun. So I'm never going to do your intro justice because you are the queen of what this is, right? Public speaking, introductions, nailing messaging. Tell us a little bit about you and what got you into where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. How long have we got?
Short and sweet. Headlines.
I'll do the short version. So I have a background in journalism. So I started out in TV and radio, was a news presenter for Channel 7 local news, Prime TV in Tamworth, the country music capital of Australia. And I worked in Sydney, metro radio stations, had a great career in the media. I then got a little bit involved in politics and worked for a local member of parliament before I joined the Air Force. And I'm still in the Air Force Reserves in Australia, so in the military. And I went to Afghanistan in 2011 and spent 6 months there where I set up the very first media training package. Came back from Afghanistan, had a run at politics myself. I've now run for all 3 levels of government, so local, state, and federal. And during that time, I made lots of mistakes. Sometimes I would master my message, other times I wouldn't. And every time I would do a public speaking appearance, whether it be on camera to a journalist or in front of a large audience, I would always bottle up those lessons learned. And I thought, I'm going to teach people what not to do and how to really feel more confident and appear confident on stage and master your messages. So I've been doing that now. I've been in business for 10 years, actually, and I've been involved in and out of politics that whole time. I love what I do. I teach people how to master their public speaking. I also teach them how to do their own public relations. And in the last 12 months, I've really niched into an area where I teach people how to get paid a lot to actually speak on stage and how to forge a paid speaking career.
I love that so much. There are so many levels to what you do, and your background is so diverse. Just, going through the I'm background in journalism myself, but never been on TV, radio, that sort of space. But what made you divert off into the army? Like, what was the calling for that? Was it a breaker in a career space there? Were you just trying to something different? What was the calling?
Well, it's Air Force, just to clarify that. I'm definitely not an Army person. I'm Air Force. And I grew up in my hometown of Newcastle, where we had a local Royal Australian Air Force base. Yeah. And I would see all the aircraft fly over all the time, and it was just genuinely curious about it. And I worked for this politician in 2007, and we were going through an election year at the time. And I thought, I'll just apply. I think an ad popped up on my Facebook feed or something like that to join the Royal Australian Air Force Reserves. And I thought, I'll just do it. Why not? I took about 6 months, and I thought we would get re-elected, the government I was working for at the time, and I would be in the Air Force Reserves on the side. Didn't quite work out that way. We didn't win the election that year, and instead I then went full-time into the Air Force for many, many years. And I was a bit like what do they call it, a square peg in a round hole. I wasn't sort of that regimented person. So I had to learn very quickly. It was sink or swim, really. I had this specialist skill, having been a journalist and worked in PR. And I guess that's why the Air Force employed me at the time, that the PR and public affairs stream wasn't really that sort of refined. Like it was quite a new thing for the Air Force at the time, and it's grown so much since then. But I just kind of made the job my own, and I had the best years of my life in the military, bringing that journalism flavour to it, to know what journalists needed from the military and how we could best communicate our message.
I love that. I love that. You just watched it flying overhead, and then I want to be part of that. So yeah, let's jump on in. I love that. Very
Why not?
Spontaneous. Why not? Indeed. Like, make the most of life. So in terms of, you mentioned at the beginning as part of your intro, there are things that people definitely do that they shouldn't be doing, and maybe are repeating offenders in terms of things that they shouldn't be doing. What are the key things? I mean, I know that my listeners and viewers have watched me and understood camera confidence, right? So I teach how to do the camera confidence, how to maintain your eye line. And that's where we've been through historically in my business, but never so much the what we're speaking about. I do a lot of scripting with my clients. So off the cuff stuff, speaking on stage, radio interviews, whatever it could be, where do people fall down the most?
Yeah, so I think not planning, really, you cannot rehearse too much. Even my most experienced CEOs, general managers still rehearse every time they're getting up on stage or even maybe fronting a staff meeting, they'll still rehearse. And so I think it's a matter of planning and workshopping or what's the worst thing that could happen. And quite often, when we get to the root of where people are nervous, it's often they're scared about the questions that they may be asked. And so we'll plan for our left field, tricky, nasty questions that we don't want to be asked, and we'll have a response prepared for that. The other thing is people don't speak to their audience. They don't think, who am I trying to reach? What am I trying to get them to think, feel, or do? And therefore, what are the keywords or phrases I need to say to make that happen? And I think a lot of people just are too worried about, oh, I just want to get through it without stumbling, rather than thinking, well, what am I here to share? What do I want the audience to be inspired by, be educated by, be motivated? Those kind of things about really thinking about your purpose. Because it's not you and I were chatting backstage and we were saying it's not a matter of just speaking for the sake of it. It's speaking because you have something to share to change someone's life, to make their job easier, or to inform them, to reassure them, to raise a perception about something. It's always with a purpose. And I think people get too hung up on, oh, what if they don't like me? Or what if they're judging me? Rather than thinking beyond that. And that is, what have I got to share?
And that's the two things there. People are always going to judge you. Newsflash, you are the biggest judge of yourself, right? Would you agree with that? We judge ourselves so much when actually the public and people watching us are more in awe that we've done the thing that they aren't quite yet comfortable in doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. And at the end of the day, not everyone's going to like you. And I certainly know this more perhaps than the average person coming from politics. I've stood up there, and the audience has been 90% against me because of the political party I was representing. But I think beyond that, I go to an event, if there's 100, I spoke at an event recently, there was 100 women there. 100 out of 100 are not going to love me. There
Mm-hmm.
might be a couple there who don't gel with me. What I'm saying to them doesn't resonate with them. You're never going to please everyone. And I think as a speaker, you need to focus on the majority who have come there to learn something from you. And the audience is generally on your side. They don't want you to stumble. They don't want you to lose your train of thought. They want, how uncomfortable it makes you feel, Beck, when you're sitting in the audience and someone's stumbling. No one wants that for you.
Yeah.
They might want it in a political sense, but they don't want it generally when you're speaking. And I think it's really important to remember that we do judge ourselves more than anyone else. No one's there thinking, oh, how many times does she say or ah, or look at her, she's moving her hands too much. They're coming there to take a piece of what you're sharing and thinking about how that's going to impact their own life.
Very well. See, that's the thing, right? And in terms of stepping up on stage, stepping into anything and doing that, it is one of those pieces where we judge ourselves the most. People about are rooting for us to succeed. And I touched on it before. That most people sit in the stages. I was having a conversation with someone the other day who asked, I've got this speech coming up. I don't know how to do it. What do I do with this? And obviously, I'm not as qualified for you in the space. Reason you're on as a guest expert on this one. But my conversation to her was very much around be natural, be human, speak from the heart. You've got your purpose there. And it was that case of what if people are judging me? And so that was the biggest stumbling block of someone. So what are your top tips of getting over that?
Oh, it's really Rehearsing.
Yeah.
That's just my number one tip in life. Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Probably master your one takeaway. So you're really focused on that. If you think, what's the one takeaway I want people to leave the room and remember? Because they're not going to remember anything more than maximum 3 messages anyway, right? So really focusing on that and thinking, if I was that audience member sitting there, what do I want to think, feel, or do? And really making it about the audience. And if you do that, you're just going to keep showing up and keep sharing your pearls of wisdom, which people are going to take so much from. I think too often we focus on, oh, what if they don't like me? What are they going to think? And you just can't get bogged down with that. I know it's easy to say that. And actually, side note, the last couple of weeks, I have never had so much criticism directly and indirectly, because I've been doing a lot of Instagram lives, a lot of reels, using filters, not using filters, showing cleavage, not showing cleavage. I cannot believe the amount of comments that I have had, either side note, oh, my husband thinks you are showing too much boob, or my husband thinks you're
Wow.
using too much filters, or gee, you look a bit tired today, or more cleavage, or have you lost weight? Where do you get your Botox from? All
Are
this
you
stuff.
serious?
So it's been a
Wow.
bit of a mind challenge for me.
Mm.
I know I'm not new to this. I've spent 20 years in the public eye, right? I was reading the news in a small town, big fish in a small sea, at the age of 21. I'm not new to this, but I've never experienced so many comments about my appearance as I have in the last
Gosh.
month. But I've tried to, it's been a really great kind of lesson learned. I've pushed it all aside. I thought, no matter how I show up, someone's not going to like how my hair looks today, or how my apparent Botox looks today, or my boobs are showing enough or not. And you just got to show up.
Yeah.
And I can really understand why a lot of people don't show up when people are so judgmental about that. But at the end of the day, I've been on a launch of my PR club membership. I've got 31 members going into it, into the founding member launch amount. And that's because I have showed up. It's because I've constantly put out that content, regardless of how I look. I put a filter on to make me look good. And I don't have to put my makeup on. I can put a filter on. It looks like I've got a full face of makeup. That makes me show up and share my message. I'm going to keep doing it. And so it's a real challenge to just block out any perceived criticism, whether it be with good intentions or not, and think, what do I have to say and what am I here to give? And to really just focus on that.
I can't believe you had so many random and also negative comments, like in terms of, and I think that's something that people are scared of putting themselves forward, and you do have to put those blinkers on and keep showing up. But we started off speaking about speaking as in from a stage, right? We've rehearsed, we've got ourselves ready, we have practiced, we are in the zone, we are ready. But social media content is arguably a completely different beast, right? It's shorter, it's different. Are you practicing and preparing everything? I think if I'm listening to it, yes, I know that I want to rehearse my speeches and my presentations so that if I drop the ball in it, I just need to look at the slide and I can remember exactly where I am, and away we go again. Not the same thing when I'm doing a Facebook Live, Insta Live, Reel, any of the things. I'm more of a post-it note planner. Do you do it differently, or you still sort of plan everything out a bit more rigorously?
Yeah, great question. I do it differently. I just literally get the topic and roll with it. But perhaps in the beginning, it's so funny. 12 months ago, I had spoken on stages with thousands of people in the audience, but you put a camera in front of my face to go live on Instagram, and I was shaking at the knees. So it's a mental thing. And I just say, whatever it takes to get you to show up, whether you need to edit it and look down at each point and edit it so you're just looking at the camera, whether you need to use a teleprompter, I can just go with the flow now. And I don't care if I say or
Yeah.
because it's just a matter of getting the content out there. Whatever it takes to make you feel comfortable to show up, do it. But show up. That's that's the key here.
Show up.
I see so many professionals, entrepreneurs who are doing incredible things in their space and no one knows about it. You don't even need to be the best at what you do. You just need to be the most well known. And showing up and getting rid of I had a client before I came on the show today. She's doing incredible things and she is afraid to show up because of what people are going to think. What about her clients? What are they going to think? And I just think if we worry all the time about what anyone's going to think, whether we stumble with our words because we aren't polished, whatever it is, if we worry too much, we'll never show up. And that's a big waste to not putting our message out there.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, I've been showing up consistently, as you know, for my business for the last decade, as of you, and I still have the post-it note on my desk that goes, "This is your reminder to show up today." You know, like even if you don't want to, what are the little hacks that you can do? You've shared that yours is your Instagram filter. Mine, you know, if you're not feeling it, put something together. Mine's getting dressed head to toe. Like I can't do it in you know, half active wear at the bottom and glammed up on the top. I got to go all the way in. Otherwise, I'm not really in the headspace. So it depends on what works for you, right? As to how you want to show up. And I think it's interesting in today's space of social media, you know, we are showing up consistently, whether we've done our makeup or not, whether we're in, you know, clothing that shows a lot or it doesn't, we're consistently showing up. But that wouldn't necessarily be the same on stage, though, would it? Would you still have your on stage presence different to showing up social media
Absolutely.
wise?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's completely different. I think there's a lot more that goes into the preparation and rehearsing when you're on stage, but still troubleshooting for those things that could go wrong and losing your train of thought or getting stuck in a hole on the stage and tripping over. Those types of things will happen on the stage. They won't happen in social media. And so a lot more rehearsing, using things that are going to jog your memory in case you do forget your lines. So having the slides up there, having some notes that are left, and knowing what makes you feel comfortable, because you can't just hit, oh, I won't edit that, I won't record that or play that part. You're on stage. You can't, there's no second chance. Everyone, all eyes are on you. So what I say is, as you do more speaking gigs, learn and document what makes you feel comfortable. So for example, Rebecca, you might love talking to 500 people, whereas I love talking to 5 people. I love having the lights dim. You like having the lights bright. I like having a clicker. I like having a handheld microphone. You
Oh,
might
that's the
like a
one I
lapel
don't like.
microphone,
I
like a
do
lot of
that.
my clients
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I feel really vulnerable with a lapel microphone because I've
Oh.
seen them go wrong so many times on stage, and the
Mm.
technicians had to jump up there and adjust it. And they just always, I just feel like I can't say anything off stage without people hearing it. Whereas a handheld, I feel really in control.
Yep.
I like to have a lectern off to the side with my notes in dot points as kind of a safety blanket
Yep.
in case I was to forget my lines. But you name it, I've done it. I've fallen over. I have not handled questions well, and I've had sort of aggressive questions thrown at me. Sometimes I've lost my temper. You name it, I've been through it. And the worst thing that can happen is really not that bad.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yep.
fall over, people have a laugh. You lose your train of thought. You can say, I've completely lost my train of thought. I was going to say something then, but I have forgotten. If I remember it, we'll come back to it. We're moving on.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so you just taking the audience on that journey with you. They're not feeling uncomfortable with you standing there and just looking like a deer in the headlights. So I think preparation is definitely going to help a lot more on stage compared to social media.
Yeah, completely. And you're right. There is those things of practicing. And for me, any mistake that you make, uh, as long as you remember that you're human and you can almost make it a humor point, you know, almost it's a, oh, okay, like you're sharing the journey of fear with the audience. I find that that actually works quite well in my favor if things do go wrong. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
very much so.
Absolutely.
You and I are very different, though. I can't do the handheld mic because I talk with my hands way too much, and that just swings around. Like, makes me
Oh.
super uncomfortable to keep it in one spot. Very much so. So, you know, one of the things that I mean, I struggle with it even now, and I have been doing the same stuff, you know, day in, day out, year in, year out. And I know I'm not alone in feeling this is when we are experts in our field and whether we're sharing it. I'm going to take speaking on stage kind of off the cards for this topic because I know that you plan a presentation and you present that hour or half an hour, whatever long you're doing it. But for social media content, PR that we're putting forwards, blog content, having to reinvent the wheel or almost like rehash what we're talking about in a different way time and time and time again can be really daunting and almost Oh, I talked about that last Tuesday. So can I really do that again this Tuesday? How do you tackle that? And have you got any, special hacks that you can share with us about how to navigate that so you don't feel like you're on repeat?
Yeah, it's actually a really great question. I've never been asked that question before, but it's a really relevant question because I do repurpose content. I think I've just, even in the last month, done 3 videos about how to pitch to the media. And a couple of things about it. Gosh, so many things about it, really. So, firstly, people who are watching that video today didn't see the video you did on that topic
Yeah.
last time you did it. Even if they could be a new follower or someone who's come into your world and your audience who wasn't in there before. But also, as we know, not all your followers on Instagram or Facebook are going to see every piece of content you put out there. And they're not going to watch it all, they're not even going to see it in their feed. So definitely repurpose, redo, even if it's so similar. In
Mm.
fact, I'm even just repurposing my entire videos at the moment that I did a year ago. A whole new following. People won't even remember it, even if they did see it as well.
Mhm.
And if you are reshooting it, but it's the same topic, you often bring a different perspective 12 months later than you did 12 months ago. You've got a lot more experience in that space, so you will bring a fresh perspective anyway. But failing all that, repurposing, yeah, I've got some followers who are like, that I saw that video before, but I wasn't sure. I'm like, yeah, it's the exact same video I posted 6 months ago. So even those who did see it don't remember.
Yeah.
Our attention spans are so short. So yeah, don't feel you have to waste great content and not use it again, because you might think, oh, I've already put this message out there. And in fact, people are just so consumed with messages at the moment. Their attention spans are shorter than they ever have been. And so, if you are repeating your messages over and over again, that's a surefire way for it to actually be heard. So, I definitely encourage people to do that.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that point because two things really hit hard for me when you're speaking through that is number one, people aren't going to always see your content like we think we are. And we can actively go down that. I don't know if you do this, actively go scrolling. So you're sort of looking for your stuff and all of a sudden you've wasted an hour, like, darn it. Like I shouldn't have gone scrolling in that way, but not very, like, it doesn't happen too often. So you've got to be at the top of the feed at the right time for the right people. So I love the fact that you've said we can share the same video time and time again because it's so true. We've got so how many times do you sit and scroll down someone's Instagram account or their Facebook page to see stuff they posted last week? We're just not that way inclined. So I think for me, I think that's one of my big takeaway from this episode is if you're listening right now is to go, oh, it's okay. I don't need to create fresh content time and time and time again. Like it's okay to just repeat it. Um, now, uh, before I sort of wrap up the episode, you've got PR Club going on. PR is a very different beast in my eyes. Would you say it's different in terms of the way that you talk your messaging, the way that you put something in front of a journalist to get it out into a wider world? Obviously, doing PR puts you in front of a much bigger audience than your current following. So, what's the pros and cons of doing that? And is it something that we should all be looking at as business owners to be doing PR, or is just social content enough?
Well, I'm obviously biased because I'm a PR professional,
Yeah.
but absolutely, it's a huge way whether you're getting on into someone else's podcast or whether you are appearing in the media. It's a great way to elevate your audience and access audiences that you never would have been exposed to before. And so, if you get even in traditional media, if you get featured on a TV news program, on the project, or maybe a giant story in the Sydney Morning Herald, just the exposure that brings to people who are reading that newspaper who didn't have any idea about you before, it's just incredible. They say that if you get featured in a newspaper, and I'm talking newspapers, even in today's day and age, in 2023, where we've still got, all this new media that's coming and being introduced, newspapers still really effective. If there's a big story on you, and it might be something I was on the project actually last year about how I hated working from home.
Yeah.
That kind of story gave my name, my business name, my name ID so much recognition. And they say it's worth 3 times the amount as if you paid for an ad. So if you paid for an ad
Wow.
in a newspaper and you took out half a page, if you're featured in a story that takes up half a page of a newspaper, they say 3 times the amount of people are going to see that. And I'd probably argue that it's higher than that, but that's what the latest stats show. And same for if you're on the news, 3 times the amount of people are going to see that as opposed to seeing it if you had a paid ad in the ad break. So it's a really incredible way of getting free publicity.
Yeah.
As long as you know what makes news, and you really got to start thinking like a journalist and thinking, is this newsworthy or how can I make it newsworthy? What's the hook? So if you've got an office opening, for example, and I have a great example. Last year, I did a media release for a client who was opening up a new law firm in Newcastle in New South Wales, Australia, where I live. And if we had just put that press release out to say new law firm opening, it probably wouldn't get the attention of journalists. But when I talked to my client, she said there's actually a really big regional lawyer shortage. In fact, 19 local government areas, like council areas in the state of New South Wales, have no lawyers at all.
Wow.
And so that's the hook. So the angle was regional lawyer shortage inspires local lawyer to set up new practice. And then I led in the opening paragraph with a regional lawyer shortage has inspired so-and-so. And it got great coverage
Amazing.
because it's a newsworthy, dramatic angle. So PR is incredible for leveraging your audience, but you really need to start thinking like a journalist in order to do it successfully.
Yeah, so it's a completely different headspace and one that I myself am sort of tinkering with and learning something new. And I know you've got PR Club and you've got founding members. Are the doors to that always open for people that are going to tune into this episode at a later date? Or is it something that's going to open periodically over the year?
No, it's always open.
Yeah.
But the advantage is the sooner you jump in, yes, there's a founding member's price, but also if you're listening to this when that has passed, I'm sure you're going to have people listening to your podcast from, way back, Beck.
Yeah.
You can jump in anytime and every month is a different topic. So it might be how to get corporate clients, how to master LinkedIn, how to pitch to the media, how to market yourself and promote yourself without social media, how to get on other people's podcasts. But I've really designed PR Club for the time poor business owner. So you don't have to rely on doing all this stuff. You're going to get templates and checklists every single month that you can swipe, copy and paste and put into your own business straight away. And that's a really important element of it. And it's why I have attracted some incredible business owners who don't have a lot of time because they know they can just go, all right, I missed the recording. Where's the template?
Yeah.
Let me put a media release out using this template. And that's definitely a big part of this particular membership.
I love that so much. I am one of those time poor people. Actually, no, I'm not time poor. No, I'm working hard on boundaries. If you're listening along, you'll know that boundaries is a big thing for me. But spending time researching something and doing something myself when I can be part of something and just grab the template, game changer. Like absolute game
Oh,
changer
yeah.
for me. Yeah, I'd rather scrub the transcript of the recording and grab what I need to know. So,
Yes, I agree. I'm the same.
yeah. Where can people find you, Jaimie? I know you share a lot of stuff on socials. Where can we find you on socials and where can we find more about the PR Club?
Yeah, so Instagram probably just my handle is Jaimie Abbott, so at Jaimie and then ABBOTT. prclub.com.au is where you can learn more about my membership, or I've got a stack of goodies to give away at jamieabbott.com.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope listening you have taken away that it's really not as scary as you think it is. And that practice really does make perfection, right? Like even if, be human. So Jaimie, thank you so much for coming on the show. I cannot wait to put this out into the world. And I really appreciate your time and your wisdom on the topic of sharing your voice to the media.
Thanks so much for having me, Rebecca. I really appreciate it.